What's up, everyone? It's Jay Ray, the co-host of Q Points, and one really important way that you can support our show is by subscribing to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Q Points is pretty much everywhere. One of those places where you can subscribe, and we highly encourage it, is on Apple Podcasts. If you visit qpnt.net/Apple Podcasts. You could subscribe to the show and listen to all of the episodes. And please, please, please leave us 5 stars because you know you love Q Points, and leave us a review. We really want to hear from you, and it helps to spread the word about the show. It's that simple. Thanks so much for tuning into Q Points, and thank you so much for supporting us. Have a great one.
Hey, what's up, super friends? We are back. Welcome back to Q Points, your visual podcast and our safe space for meaningful dialogue surrounding Black music and the global impact of Black music. Welcome back. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And I am Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay the Third. What's up, y'all?
Hey, listen, I am so happy to be back and to be able to talk to you guys directly. J-Ray, I have to say, I've said it before publicly, but I want to say thank you again to everybody for the wonderful birthday shout outs. This was a special weekend. It was really, really dope. The universe has been reminding me, like tapping me on my shoulder, like, hey, you.
Hey, you're dope, dude.
You're dope. People love you. They F with you the long way, all that good stuff. And so, you know, I can, with a lot of the deaths that have been going around with a lot of public figures and whatnot, and we just don't know the demons that people are dealing with.
Yes. And
I can totally relate. And it's really good to be reminded that you are loved. And it's good to remind people that they mean something to you. So thank you to everyone. I had a great weekend. Of course, you know, Monday was difficult hearing. It was difficult hearing about the passing of Michael K. Williams.
And I was just thinking of Monday, and it's so crazy how so much has been happening. And even just thinking about that taking place on Monday is, it's stuff you want to forget about. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it is, you know, aside from that, it was a wonderful weekend. You know, House in the Park, Atlanta was phenomenal. And, you know, a lot of great things. But listen, we're going to liven the mood up because we have a very, very special guest today. I love it when we have guests on the show, especially dynamic people who are doing a lot of things to carry on this legacy of Black music.
Yes.
So without further ado, listen, tonight's guest, let me just get y'all ready. Tonight's guest is an MC, a talk show host, cultural commentator, and probably, listen, he's an all-around fashionista as well.
Yes.
So everybody, all my Q Points family, please welcome Baltimore's favorite son, the one and only, the Secretary of Shade himself, rapper, artist, Dapper Dan Midas. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on? How are y'all feeling? That was a lot. Appreciate it.
Hey, I mean, listen, it's one thing we know is that we don't hold back on flowers around here.
No.
So we're gonna give people their shine that is well deserved.
Thank you.
So how are you? I saw you tore it down in Sacramento last weekend. Like, how does it feel performing live in like a post-vaccine world? Because we ain't post-pandemic. We still in it.
Mm-hmm. It was actually awesome. It was a show at Sacramento Rainbow Fest. The kids were amazing. Great energy, great vibe. they gave us actually a great slot right before the headliner. So it was really good to do that. And like I said, the crowd response was great. The show, sometimes as an artist, especially being off road for a long time due to, the state of the world, you're like, oh my God, like, you still got it, like what's
Right.
going on, you know what I'm saying? And you get there, and once you hit the stage, it all comes to you, and it's a good time. So it was great.
Awesome.
How do you prep for that? Like you said, there's a gap in between when actually being live in front of people, and shake that rust off. What do you do?
Um, it's really, I mean, you can train, you can prepare, you can listen to your songs, all the things that any artist would do. But honestly, um, Madonna has she says this sometimes. She says her talent belongs to God. She just manages it, and
Mm.
I honestly feel that way about what I do. My shows are very much I kind of like to call them like church services almost. I grew up with my grandmother. She went to Baptist church, and things like that. So a lot of how I do my sets, yes, there is a set, there's an order, but it's also dictated by how I'm feeling, what space the crowd is in, and what space the environment in the world is in. That all dictates the type of show that you get from me. It's always a good show, but my shows are always tailored to the event.
Yeah. One thing I saw last week as well, I guess it was like 2 weeks ago, you actually hosted a show. I believe it was in Baltimore. And just looking at the pictures, I was like, why did I miss this show? Why was I not there? You had an umbrella. So when you talk about tailoring a show and getting ready, like you always ready, bruh. Like talk to us a bit about that experience of hosting that event, because it looked amazing.
Well, I didn't host it. That event I actually headlined, but
Okay.
that I'm glad that you said that I hosted the event because that's the vibe that I like to give. For that particular show, it was for Love Groove Music Festival, which is, believe it or not, that's a festival put on by a 21-year-old kid.
Wow.
Um, and he like gets the sponsors, like of course there's a team, but he's the visionary behind it, and he asked me to headline Love Group this year. And I wanted to just give him something special also because that was the first show at a facility that I've done since probably, I want to say, late 2019. So I wanted to give something special, and I wanted to, for that show, I talked to him about what the set design was. Not that I dictated what that was because he's doing it for a whole cast of artists, but when he told me it's like a living room scene, I said, okay, well, let's come in out of the rain and welcome them into the living room and have a nice evening of song and conversation. That show was more cabaret, one-man show kind of geared, so um, each artist did 4 songs. So in my 4 songs, I had an arc in how I wanted to display it. So I wanted this set to tell a story. Of course, I do He Say, She Say, and, those types of songs. This was the first time I actually performed the Ballad of Dante live in front of people, which I was incredibly nervous about. But I said, we have to do it. And, I just made it like that. And, people loved it, and it went over very well. So I'm thankful for it.
Absolutely. And so, as we opened the show, we mentioned losing Michael K. Williams earlier this week, and how his work has impacted us in so many different ways. But in 2020, DDM released the immaculate body of work titled Ballad of Omar, named after the pivotal character immortalized by Williams. So please just give us a little background and tell us about your affinity towards that character, Omar from The Wire.
Well, it's interesting because so my mom says we come from a family of psychics, and I don't know what that means. But I always loved that character. I loved the Omar character because it was the first time I saw a queer black man portrayed with nuance, who also happened to look like the men who I knew in my life at that time. I'm from Northwest Baltimore City, and you know, and when you're talking the early 2000s, late 90s, yes, gay culture existed, of course it did, but coming from where I'm from, I didn't really get exposed to gay culture as a community until a little bit later. So I only went off of men like that, like Omar character, and so that was the first time on television I had seen men that I knew in real life on TV, but also portrayed with a sense of range and a sensitivity too, that they don't give black men in general a lot in media, but let alone a queer black man who just so happens to be a master stick up artist. So it was inspiring to me, and tying that into my music background, coming from during rap battles when I first started and things like that. I just could relate to the character. So I used the Omar character as an homage, but also as a framework to tell the backstory of what it was like for me when I first, realized that I was gay, and what that journey was like navigating the early 2000s hip hop scene and all that entailed.
And for those of you watching this right now, if you're in the chat and you've had the pleasure of listening to the Ballad of Omar, drop your favorite track in the chat and let us know. I can tell you off the top, my favorite tracks are Ra-Cha-Cha, Door Knockers, and 1995. Like, those still ride very hard. And I say you can put Ballad of Omar up right next to a Reasonable Doubt. You could put it next to It Was Written. All of those, any mainstream, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but any mainstream hip hop album, you could put that up to it, because as you stated, it's not only just about punchlines and dope beats, but you really told a story about your life, and we saw that. We could see every inch of that window that you opened for us into your life, and how we can tell you came from the battle rap scene, but we can also tell that you trained yourself as a whole artist.
Yes.
And just with that, artists are unique people. And tell us, what do fans, what does the audience, what do critics not see? Because we're thinking about Michael K. Williams, and now, of course, whenever we lose someone like a Michael or a DMX, everybody brings up, the fact that they were dealing with different demons or different things in their lives. But what do fans and audience and critics not see from an artist? What would they be surprised to learn about the life of an artist in general?
I think that, and I say this all the time, artist life is a very lonely one. It's one that it's like being, and this is going to sound mad, but it's like being a pirate, and you're on this ship with other pirates, and you have a like agenda in mind, and you all know what this life is like, but nobody else does. But at the same time, you and the other pirates are in competition to get the pot of gold that's somewhere. So you'll work together to get it. And I say this all the time, but when someone gets it first or someone gets a little bit more, it can become a little dicey. I think that this life has taught me that you can count your real friends on one hand, and you won't be able to use all of your fingers. I think that that's the part that people don't see. So when they see these uber successful people, and I have not reached that star yet, so I can't say what I would be like in that seat, but I understand when Drake was doing the whole no new friends thing, and if you listen to a lot of the Drake records, if you listen to Tyler's records, if you listen to Jay-Z's records, a lot of the great introspective artists, what you hear in there is an underlying feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
Even though they have families, even though they have, spouses and things like that, there's just certain things in this life, in art life, that people don't understand, even with your families. Like, it's so interesting to me. With the exception of my cousin, Matt, no family member has ever come to any show of mine. Not my mom, not my dad, like no one, zero zilch. And a lot of that's the thing. Like, people always say when they watch these award shows, and they're like, I remember when Lisa Lopez, now she was being shady because she could have thanked T. Boss and Shelley because it wasn't award. But I remember many years ago, when Lisa Left Eye Lopez thanked her hairstylist and her wardrobe people and things like that. And I got that. I get it. When people thank their agents and their directors and their cast members, and, people think that you're automatically supposed to thank your family. When in this life, your family, most of the time, really had nothing to do with your success. And that's going to sound very harsh to some people, and it's going to sound very cold, but it's the absolute truth. If you talk to most artists who have starved, who have had to sit out things and, travel, family did not help them. The Beyoncés of the world, the Jacksons of the world, those people, those are very much exceptions to the rule. But when it's award show time, or when, the checks start rolling in, you're supposed to thank your family first. And sometimes that's just not how it works.
That's real.
I get that. And so I guess my question then to you then is, how were you taking care of yourself? Yeah. Because again, like pretty much every show that we've had over the past few months, we've been saying goodbye to somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody's become an ancestor. And a lot of times I just wonder, what are these people doing to take care of themselves? Can they, as you said, it's a lonely life, but is there somebody you can turn to, or what do you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah.
Me personally, I think that what keeps me, in a great state of mind or sane most of the time, because everybody has their days, right? But for me personally, what keeps me together is living in reality. I've always had a philosophy and a saying that always know where you stand on the chessboard. I always know where I'm at in life. I'm never delusional with myself. I'm never delusional with where I stand. Sometimes it's almost to my detriment because I don't always take the time to see, oh, great, that was successful. Like, you did that. My mind is always, that was cute. Now we need to build upon that. Sometimes with me, people think because when they see my videos, they see Secretary Shade, all that stuff, they think that I'm this rambunctious ball of energy all the time. And sometimes that is the case. That's very much a piece of who I am. But to keep me sane, I will literally just sit in the house and watch TV. I watch my shows. I collect action figures and, things like that, fashion books. And I do a lot of research. That's kind of like therapy for me. And I learn through osmosis. So I'll sit and watch 800,000 fashion documentaries and, things like that. But keeping myself together is just basically living in reality and knowing what it is and what it ain't. Sometimes you do have to dream, but in order to get that dream, you have to know where you're at in your sleeping process. There's a cycle called REM. In your sleeping process, that's the dream. You have to look at your career and your life as a night of sleep and rest. And, a lot of people want to get to that REM space and they haven't relaxed first and even gotten there yet. You're still trying to get to that place. So that's kind of how I look at my life.
Amazing.
So one of the things that, along with the Ballad of Dante, that you did that was so inspirational was that Lulu Vision video. Baby, I literally watched that and said, how how and wow and oh my goodness. It was like, so when you were just talking about the idea of like the dream, that was like, oh my goodness, I can imagine that he dreamed this, and now you get a chance to see it come true. Just a beautiful expression of that album in 16 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Pulling that together, what was the inspiration to one do that performance, that virtual performance?
Actually, a friend of mine, Ashley, said that I should do a video for each song on a project. I said, well, we're in the middle of the pandemic with budget constraints and things like that, and they're putting it together. Because if you see my actual music video productions, I always like to present at a level that a major artist does in my visual. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm not sure if we have enough time to do that. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no, you could just do like a bunch of short green screen videos. And then so when she said that, I said, well, I can't just do that. That's just not going to work for me. So I had to figure out a way. I'm a theme person. I love a point of view. I love an aesthetic. So anything that I do has to have an aesthetic. So using my art knowledge, using my fashion knowledge, using my knowledge of video and being a photographer's assistant for about 3 or 4 years, I said, okay. I got with my editor, Minifin, who has worked with me on a few projects in the past for many years. And I said, we can make this work. And he's like, absolutely. So we shot the video. We shot all of the videos for that Lulu Vision in 2.5 hours. We rented out.
Wow.
Rented out a studio set because I'm very efficient when I work because time is money. I think as an artist, when you have to pay for everything, you learn the power of budgeting and knowing how to be efficient with your dollars. Yeah. So for me, because I paid for all my productions, all these nice videos y'all see, there's no finance here. There's no person coming out of pocket. That is DDM working a 9-to-5 job, sometimes a 9-to-8 job, a 9-to-9 job, 5 to 6 days a week, paying for that.
Yeah.
So I knew that me knowing, but if you're going to a green screen studio, you have to pay by the hour and it's not cheap. So I said, let's go ahead and knock this out. I knew what songs we were doing. I knew what songs I already had visuals for, the 2 cartoon videos. I had ordered those as those are going to be just the 2 visuals because of the pandemic that I was going to put out as like kind of like viral moments just to have for the video. And when I saw the cartoons, I started piecing it together. I'm like, we got the 2 cartoon videos. And then if I shoot the other 4 on green screen, it's not going to take long. That'll give me roughly about 20 minutes because you got to leave room for them to upload your footage because you have to pay for the time for everything. And you don't like them uploading your footage and giving it to you. They're not doing that after the clock runs out. All of that is paid for. Everybody's time is paid for. And when you're an artist financing yourself, everybody gets paid before you do. And that's just the way it works. And we went to the green screen place. I shot the pieces that I needed to shoot and took the footage home. Me and Benefit sat with each other. Ashley was here as well. We sat together and I directed and helped edit the visual because I always have a hand in that process and source footage from classic cartoon commercials that I loved and grew up as a kid, infused pieces of Baltimore. Old news in it. If you notice when you watch Lulu Vision, it has commercials that'll come in from actual television and things like that. And each video was based off of a different show. So 1995 is based off of Rap City. That's why it opens with the boombox. If you watch Rap City back in the day on BT, that sequence, even though it's not the Rap City sequence, it reminds you of that. Boys Don't Cry. We shot that in like we did an interrogation room kind of background with that. With door knockers, we went into outer space because of the feel of it. Ra Cha Cha, I wanted to shoot that as a wrestling promo. That's why I had the SmackDown commercial in between that. So I shot that as a wrestling promo, kind of like an homage to Macho Man and old WCW, WWF, and over West we did the Dirt Bites. So I kind of like fused all of the influences of things I liked, and Lulu Vision was basically something that you would see on a network. So if you turned on this network, in the morning you have Saturday cartoons. It starts with the Ballad of Omar. Then we go to Rap City in the afternoon. Then we have midday wrestling that comes on. Then we have our prime time, nighttime moment, and then we have Over West, which is kind of like the news. You see the dirt bikes in the back and live footage, and that's how I envisioned it.
Yeah, good work.
Listen, DDM is a whole renaissance man. A lot of artists today, and I think it might be a Baltimore thing. The whole DIY scene is major there. And, as he said, he's doing everything behind the scenes, and hats off to you, definitely. And I can see more parallels between you and we talking about Michael K. Williams and how his, he was a Renaissance man as well, yes. Choreographer, actor. He was going to do, he did the DMX tribute. So he could rap also. He was in hip hop real heavy. He was supposed to play Old Dirty Bastard. He was part of the ballroom scene.
Right.
He was part of the ballroom scene. So, I can see the parallels, and it was definitely fate that led you to fashioning the Ballad of Omar after him. And we just didn't even know it, the depths that it was going to go to. But you also mentioned, for your sanity, you watched a lot of television, you watched documentaries, and over the weekend, listen, guys, I checked out the dopest documentary. Rick James is featured in a documentary on Showtime now. It's called Bitchin': The Sound and Fury of Rick James. If you haven't checked it out, please go to Showtime, download the app, whatever you need to do to check this out, because Rick James was another artist that we lost entirely too early. We lost him to a lifetime of addiction. And I was riveted by his journey.
Yes.
As a musician. Like, he started out as Ricky Matthews with the Minor Birds and singing folk rock with Neil Young of all people, and all those people with the Mamas and the Papas, that whole California scene. But it was in him. He wanted to be a rock god, and he did become a funk rock god that we know as Rick James today. So, DDM, can you relate? I know this is an obvious answer, but can you relate to Rick James and his many manifestations as an artist?
Actually, I love Rick James. I actually read his book some years back. He had an autobiography. I think it was an autobiography. Yeah, it was an autobiography called Glow that was absolutely hilarious. And I love his artistry. I love his talent. His story is definitely an inspiration. His mother worked for the mob. It was just an amazing story. But one thing I loved about Rick James is as outlandish as his persona was, he never really forgot where he came from. Whenever he needed to really make his best records or his biggest records or the records that meant the most, he had to always go home to Buffalo.
Yep.
And I definitely feel that tied to my home city as well. One thing that I think sometimes gets lost is how great of a musician Rick James was. And when you listen to his band, when you go back and listen to, Big Time, Give It To Me Baby, Cold, how tight the band is, how the horn section is just like amazing on those records. And his approach to songs, how he sang the songs, which Rick James' voice is not a typical pop voice, but somehow he managed to make that vocal pop. But that's the sign of a true artist, because you're not limited to what the trend or the standard is. You can always create your own standard and make it become the standard. And I think that's something that Rick James was very, very good at, and just such a mega talent. With a mega talent comes mega issues. and that stems from, home life, upbringing, lack of support system, um, in some cases. And there's sometimes the most dangerous thing, I think, is when the person realizes that they really don't need people. And you're saying, Dion, what the hell do you mean? But I think that when a person becomes so independent because life, family, friends have, proven that they can't be counted upon in times of need, it causes a person to become very insular, um, and very singular in the way that they think about their life, which that helps feed the greatness, but it also becomes dangerous because the person does not look outside to help, because in reality, inside of their mind, they really just don't have a trust for people at all.
Yeah. It fed the beast. Like what I appreciated about him is he was insistent. He was insistent on his art. You mentioned the orchestration. My favorite scene is the scene where the two engineers are in the studio
with you and I
breaking down You and I, and how You and I has three different intros. To it. I absolutely love that. But that was he insisted on it, and I think that's something that a lot of artists, and we see that in you insist on making whatever it is that you have up here come out into fruition.
Yes.
And what I also appreciated about Rick was that Rick was unafraid to tap into his feminine energy, or tap into feminine energy. It allowed him to write for women. It allowed him as an artist to be free. Do you feel like enough male artists do that today?
The good ones do, but in different ways. When you look at Drake definitely taps into his feminine energy, but I think we have to look at what this feminine energy look and feel like. I think that sometimes when you say feminine energy or feminine side, people automatically relate that to a physical aesthetic and not a state of mind. I think that to tap into the psyche of the female spectrum is a skill. It's a skill that takes one being able to look outside of themselves and really channel and find that. If you listen to a Drake record, he does that. When you listen to Jay-Z records, he does that. When you listen to songs like Allure, even though that's one of the coldest and one of my favorite cocaine records ever. The way that he talks about it is he is really channeling how the woman feels, who support men in the streets like that, and what their feelings are, how they deal with it, what happens to them. And that takes a lot. And I think that great songwriters, male songwriters, have done that throughout the ages. When you look at, some of the Chucky Thompsons and the Rodney Jerkins and the Sean Garretts of the world, and the Polo the Dons and all of those people. You don't Danger Hands. There's a certain level that you have to tap into to get that. So I think that it's there. I think we're in a place now where people wanted to be there, but they wanted to be there the way that they wanted to be there.
Yeah. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I'm not going to get myself in trouble tonight.
Well, listen, J. Ray and I were saying, like, we were talking. One of my favorite parts of the documentary, and J. Ray agrees, is tapping into the whole, if you want to call it not even a beef, but a rivalry between Rick and Prince.
Absolutely,
I called it. I was like, Rick and Prince were the original Butch Queens. Like they definitely were able, but it was so dope. They set the tone for Diddy is a Butch Queen. All the ASAP boys, those are Butch Queens. Tyler is a Butch Queen if he knows it. I'm pretty certain Tyler is like, those are definitely the sons of Rick James.
Yeah.
I would it's funny Tyler, because I always said, and somewhere there may be a casting director who'll see this and totally take credit for it if they do it. But I always said that Tyler, the creator, if he has the acting chops, should play Rick James, because I think the look is there from inside of the outfits, and he has the persona where he has the voice and the persona and the slight oddness and eccentric flair where I just could see it.
Yeah.
I just could see it.
Yeah.
Him in that braided wig and those outfits, like I just could see it.
So it was interesting watching the Rick documentary. So first of all, the Rick James documentary, and for those of y'all who haven't seen it, who are watching, and I want to do something real quick. I want to shout out. So Wani, you shouted us out earlier. Wani, love it. DG is joining us. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. And if y'all have questions for DDM or y'all have comments, let us know. And if you've seen the Rick James documentary on Showtime, definitely let us know what you think. But one of the things I most enjoyed about the documentary is the Rick James was this was exactly what I thought Rick was going to be like. Like, it gave me everything I thought. And I was like, wow, Rick was not, it wasn't an act. Like, this is who he was. And I appreciated that. There was a moment though, and I'm hoping that folks watch it. For me, I think a big learning moment for artists was that moment when he marched into the head of the record label and snorted that line and then jumped on the thing and was like, promote the record. And he was like, we doing this Lionel Richie thing. And that was like it. And I was like, ooh, moments, lessons.
Those are those defining moments that we tend to hear about when artists, it can either go one of two ways. Artists that will advocate for themselves with a label, they'll either get what they want or they'll be told to hit bricks, you know, and to step. And that makes me think of like because you've done the DIY thing for so long, because you are the CEO of your life and your artistry, like, is that even, major labels are not even a thing anymore, if you ask me, but is that even a thing that you want regarding your artistry at this point?
That was my dream for many years. I always wanted to, I always tell people I would have been fine just being an artist who was signed to a major and was stupid and had no idea. I totally would have been fine with that. And I don't have any shame in saying that. But I think God had some kind of vision for me. He said, we're not going to do that. And I was never a first choice artist. Like, I was never the artist that the league was just going to see and be like, we can make money off of him. Because I don't think that they really understood or could process what I was overall, right? And some of that is my fault. It's really nobody's fault, because going through your artistic process, that is something that's necessary depending on the level of success and the level of artistry that you choose or would like to attain. Now, if you're just an entertainer and you have a skill set where you can sing really well or you can dance really well and material is not a big deal to you, looks aren't a big deal to you, aesthetic isn't a big deal to you because you're just an entertainer, you're that person, that's fine. But if you care anything about your art, there's a gelling process that has to happen there. And it's something that they don't really do often, which is why you see people practicing on some of the world's biggest stages like Saweetie. No shade to Saweetie, but there was a time where you cannot come out and do a press statement and say, I'm in an artist development camp and you got top 10 records. That's right. Like crazy to me.
Or you can't say that you like to work with Donna Summer.
You could never say that.
And Donna Summer's been dead for over a decade. we talk about that too.
You would never be able to say that. You would never be able to get McDonald's deals and things like that. So we just live in a different time. Now, for me, it took me a decade just to get a meeting with a major. And they took the meeting because gay is all the rage, but they still, I'm a plus size, you know, black boy from Baltimore City who merges pop and hip hop with a avant garde aesthetic. They have no idea what to do with that. Um, I would have to super simplify, which in some ways I have. I've learned, sometimes, less is more. You can prove your point, but at the same time, I'm not going to do a dog and pony show for a 360. Um,
Mm.
I'm just not going to do that, especially when I look at, Beautiful Gowns, which did really well for me. And, you know, DistroKid, I get that payment whenever I feel like I don't have to wait a quarter or
Right.
things like that. I got my first placement on a television show without a record label.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting
Yeah.
booked on national shows through a booking agency without a record label.
Yeah.
Um, I just did my first feature with Hollywood actors, Broadway actors, without a record label. No management or agent, just people in my life who see what I'm doing and it's like, hey, this kid's talented, throw him on the show.
Mm-hmm.
This kid's talented, let's go ahead and screen test him and put him in a film. So I'm thankful to, those people like that. But the record label was the dream, but it's just not the dream for me anymore. Am I going to deny it if the right situation comes along? Absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I'm just not in a place where I'm making product to actively pursue a record deal at this point. It's exhausted me, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny you bring that up. So shout out to DJ DG in the comments. He brought up the part of the documentary highlighting Rick James standing up to MTV.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get black artists aired on MTV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this might be kind of a wild take and a stretch. Would you look at Lil Nas X in that same light? Like, is he, because now he's getting the major looks and he's on heavy rotation on the MTV, is that, is the door going to be kind of creaked open now, or in your opinion, or what?
I hope so. I know that in the beginning, when you would talk to record people, they looked at Lil Nas X as an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did have a diamond record and he switched. But then he started getting more records. Panini was 6 times platinum, and this record was double platinum. Like his plaque list, although every artist now on plaque list, you kind of look at it through a different lens because it's not a million records sold; it's the equivalent in streams.
Right.
So it's not the same as a Destiny's Child plaque.
Right.
Even though it's platinum, but nevertheless, even if you say like Old Town Road is 14 million equivalent units, that's still a lot of money.
Yes.
So when you look at the sales, um, that's definitely a question. Now, the question is the industry really going to back off of that? I think so. Lil Nas X made a very important point when he said there was somebody asked on like one of his Facebooks or on, because they all say that we have a gay agenda and that we're trying to turn black men gay and corrupt the black man and all of that stuff. When we just getting the black gay artists in mainstream to this magnitude in 2021. But we're doing this. So now the question was, they have an agenda, it's a gay agenda, they're ruining the black man. Why isn't there any black rap artists? It's only women and white men. And he made a very good point. He's like, how about none of them wanted to work with him?
Yeah.
And as a person that's been in I can relate to, not to his level of success by any means, but relate to the struggle of doing a record. It's amazing to me that you can still sell 14 million records on one single, 6 million on a single, double platinum, gold, and it's still hard for even a 14 million a diamond on its way to double diamond artist, and he still will not be accepted by his peers. Now, as it pertains to Lil Nas X, I think he's just the right artist at just the right time for just the right reasons. I think that he's young enough to do a lot of gutsy things that some of his older counterparts would not do. I think that he is very much in line with um, this generation of queer people. This generation of queer people, if you were born in the late 90s, you grew up watching prominent gay figures on television and in media. So to you, you don't know what it's like to um, have to walk in the shadows or having to blend. We come from the generation of blending, realness. Even when you go to balls now, the categories are changing. Realness was coveted, and now the new kids kind of shy away at realness. Whereas someone from my era who was born in the mid late 80s, we still covet realness. Like, I don't hate to say this. I'm being very honest in my thoughts. Even when I go to balls and I'm looking at certain girls, the realness girls will get me every time. When I watch Drag Race, the real fish girls, that's who I go up for every time. That's not a shade to your walk or your aesthetic, but mentally, that's how I was groomed. Mentally, that was groomed out of a form of survival. Is it traumatic? Yes, some would say that, but at this point, it's going to be what it's going to be, and that's another thing too. Um, I'm one of those people that I'm very much a I said what I said kind of person. Um, if something that I say, if I feel like is offensive or I'm targeting a person, I will definitely own that. But my intentions and how I present things, I'm never targeting someone. I'm just speaking how I feel and what I prefer and what I like. And so you'll never catch me. I have a philosophy: never apologize to the internet, and I never will. I never have, never will. Um, and I won't leave the chat. And
even if your publicist, even if your publicist tells you to.
Here's when I say I won't leave the chat, meaning that for some people leaving the chat is deleting their comment, not me. I'm not going to argue with. I'm like people at this point. If you follow me on Facebook or social media, I'm notorious for stating my piece. You can argue and rebut. I may give you one rebut, but after that, it's over. You will be talking to yourself, and you can at me all day, and eventually I'll just block you. But my status is still going to stay up there because I said what I said.
And speaking of status, J Ray and we are definitely fans. As we close out, what is the Dapper Dan Midas legacy that you are leaving?
I have no idea what it will be. I know that in my small town, in my city, I think that there are kids who come up to me and say all types of nice and gracious things. I think that if I never get to the place that I would like to be, I think that I've at least done enough visuals where some plus size black queer kid can look and say, oh, he was on it. Bad timing. He was too early, but he was on it. And I could take this aesthetic, update it to whatever era that kid may be in at the time, and go to the moon with it. It's my hope that I become a huge success in some capacity, whether it be in film, whether it be in music or anything like that. Some people say, oh, you should be a political commentator. I do that as a hobby. That's not something I'm really interested in making a life out of, talking about how terrible our government is. That's why Secretary of Shade, if you watch it, like you guys have a very nice, podcast format and show. I'm just not putting that much energy into, talking about how trash our political environment and our elected officials are. We'll talk to them and we'll have those discussions, but I'm not going to sit and put energy and be exhausted and worn out because life is depressing. Absolutely not.
I hear you. Well, go ahead, Jerry.
Real quick. Also, I know one of the things you mentioned. So, Life on Sale. This is something that's kind of is that something in the works? What's the new stuff that's kind of?
Oh yeah, so my new project, Life on Sale, which will be out. It's supposed to be out in November, but with the cases rising again, and then I had a big shoot planned, and that had to get canceled because of things like Delta. We pushed it back to March, April 2022. The project itself is about 85% done.
Nice.
Quite frankly. A few things I might add or take out. We shot the cover for it. That's in post now. I actually just had talk with the graphic designer. But basically, Life on Sale is basically talking about the life that we were sold. I feel like as American citizens, particularly if you're of a certain generation, I think millennials and not Generation Z, particularly geriatric millennials, I hate that term, and millennials coming to grips with uh, the fact that the life that they grew up watching is not the
Mm-hmm.
life that's actually going to be here for them.
Right.
Yeah.
We were sold an aesthetic. If you were born, I want to say between the mid 80s to early 90s, you believe that, MTV will be around forever. You believe that everybody can be a star. You
Mm-hmm.
believe that, you know, you will work such X amount of hours, and you will be able to get that house and that car and start your family, and, it would be difficult. I think now, and that was the life that was sold to us. We were sold American capitalism, the great American dream, McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
MTV, all era, all that great stuff, and we're living in a time where none of that. The malls are crumbling. McDonald's is absolute trash food, and sorry, McDonald's. Y'all probably ain't gonna sponsor me now, but whatever. Um, and, you're seeing all of that manifest itself into a life that you did not anticipate. You did not anticipate living through terrorism attacks, a
Mm-hmm.
global plague, crumbling housing market, a terrible employers market, and cost of living that is pretty much, it requires a roommate or a significant other at this point. So when
Mm.
I titled this project Life on Sale, it was about that. And it was really about how we were sold the American dream that no longer is there for us.
Definitely
Well,
excited.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to every and anything that you bring us, Dapper Dan Midas, DDM. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation tonight. Like I said, J Ray and I were just like, you're just gonna ask a couple questions and let him go because he's that dude. He can do that. And you did not disappoint. We thank you so much. Please let the people know how they can keep in contact with you and stay up to date on your projects.
Well, you can always follow me at Dapper Dan Midas. That's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Even though I don't do TikTok like that, no shade. I feel like it's a unnecessary platform because you do the same shit on Instagram. But yeah, all of those things. YouTube.com/Secretary of Shade for those episodes and to view my music videos, um, and follow me on Spotify as well. Just type in DDM, and it'll pop right up. And you can, listen to Beautiful Gowns and Ballad of Omar, and Stop My Bag and all that good stuff there.
Oh, real quick, will Ballad of Omar, is that available on vinyl?
No, it's not. Okay, and that's a
Okay.
whole other podcast on the vinyl
Okay.
process. Now I am in the process of looking into um, re-releasing Beautiful Gowns and Ballad of Omar in a vinyl set.
Perfect.
Um,
Okay.
Oh, nice.
but I know Life on Sale, that'll be my first official solo vinyl release.
Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm happy to hear that. You know how I feel about vinyl, folks. And speaking of which, let me just segue real quick. Friday, tomorrow, if you're in the Atlanta area, come on out and join me at the Best and Brewery, which is at 1036 White Street in Southwest Atlanta. For Thank God It's Vinyl, the good people over at TGIV have invited your boy. I'm going to slang a couple records while you drink some brew, drink some cocktails. They have a wonderful a mixed outdoor, indoor kind of atmosphere. So there's plenty of space to space out and be, of course, be COVID restricted with your mask and everything. But yeah, it's going to be a great time. If you have the time, come on out. I'll be kind of in the middle of the set. There's a great lineup of other DJs that are going to be spinning, and we're all spinning vinyl. J Ray, you got something else to tell the people?
I got so much to tell you. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to put a link in the chat. Everyone, if you could, we are continuing to build out what the Q Points Insiders looks like, and we need your help. We need to know where you want to gather. Like, so there are so many opportunities. It's a real quick survey. So if you are watching this, I'm going to say this because if you're listening to the podcast, you can fill it out too. So if you go to qpnt.net/lowercase s, capital T, lowercase v, capital L, capital J, capital O. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Go to qpoints.com and there'll be a link to it. Anyway, fill out the survey, please. It's just one question and it will really, really help. And also, we want you to become a Q Points Insider. So if you go to qpoints.com, super simple. You can click on the button and become a Q Points Insider. And you can also, of course, follow us on Instagram at Q Points and then on Twitter at Q Show and right on Facebook at Q Points as well.
And it's as simple as that. As J. Ray said, you can also take us with you. We are on iTunes podcasts.
Yes, we
so
are.
You can find us on iTunes as well. But listen, kids, I want to thank Dapper Dan Midas, DDM. We appreciate you so much for joining us this evening. Nothing but success for you in the future. We've known each other for years now. I'm super, super proud of the artist that you have become and can't wait to see what happens next. And with that being said, you're welcome. And that with being said, kids, what do I say every week? In life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
J. Ray, y'all.
Thank you. We'll see you next week. This is Q Points. Have a good night.
Peace.